What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are getting the conclusion of Titan Hulk along with the origin of his character, which is really cool. So what this does here is this initially picks up in the mind of Bruce Banner with a little bit of taunting from despair, right? Remember, because of the fact that the Titan Hulk basically originates in the mind of Banner, when Doctor Strange got involved, his physical form is on his way to Planet Hulk. His spiritual form is in the mind of Banner, right? So he's just there trying to get rid of the Titan Hulk the best he can. The problem is he ends up encountering the Fear Lord Despair. But the thing about Despair is he's ridiculously OP. And in recent years, he was easily defeated by Doctor Strange in a way that normally shouldn't have been done. But what Despair does is he actually gives us this kind of origin of the Titan Hulk in telling us that what had happened is that somewhere along the line, a green door manifested to Despair. Now, anybody who's familiar with the Hulk mythos knows the significance of the green door, but that really comes from Al Ewing's run. So for those of you guys who aren't really familiar with that, and again, I'll have a link to the Hulk playlist from Al Ewing down in the comment section, but when it came to the green door, the way this worked is that in years past, you just had people who became different versions of the Hulk. Jennifer Walters became Incredible Hulk, Doc Samson became Doc Green, Bruce Banner became the Incredible Hulk, and so on and so forth. But what Al Ewing did is he introduced the idea of the green door, that in effect, whenever a person with gamma radiation in their body and they are a Hulk, whenever they die, a green door opens and they can be reborn. They can basically come back to life. It's a roundabout way for immortality. Now, we ended up learning that the origin of the green door actually came from the One Below All, who was basically an answer to the question, what happens when the One Above All hulks out? It was a pretty insane revelation at the end of that story, right? Like, the god of the Marvel multiverse has a Hulk form and it's the One Below All. It was pretty dope. But what Despair says is that it was presented with a kind of power, or at least a little semblance of power, by this being. Now, what Despair says is that this little nugget it was given that comes in the form of a red ball, that it was only a small form or a small fraction of this being's power, that it had an astronomical amount of power. Now, by all standards of measurement, it was the One Below All that gave this power to Despair. And anybody who knows anything about our coverage of Al Ewing's Hulk will tell you guys, the One Below All is immensely powerful. I mean, there was literally a point in the story where Al Ewing showed us what would happen in the future when the One Below All seized control of the Hulk, that it basically destroys the whole multiverse. It's reborn into the new multiverse after killing Franklin Richards and Galactus, and then destroys the next multiverse. That it would just wipe these things out continually until the end of time. It was a really awesome revelation. But because of the power of the One Below All, even just a fraction of it, that Despair was overwhelmed by it, right? Just like, God, this is insane. And in fact, what was instructed of Despair is that he was to take this little fraction of what seems to be the One Below All's power and place it inside the mind of Banner. And that's where the Titan Hulk comes from. It's an external power source that is slowly manifested and kind of gained sentience over the years. And that's why we were never really given a definitive explanation of where the Titan Hulk came from. It's not some alternate personality of Bruce Banner. It's not some long lost aspect of his anger and rage that he never quite dealt with. It's a foreign body, right? It's like having some kind of illness in his body, a kind of cancer that's just been growing over time and manifests in the form of the Titan Hulk. Now, what this does here is it basically leads to, again, this revelation that Stephen Strange's physical form is on its way, but with his spiritual form basically overtaken by the combined power of Despair as well as the Titan Hulk persona, that what this does is it actually leads to the body and the mind of Stephen Strange merging. Their power is completely reunified, and then in turn, they're able to cast off the power of Despair and effectively lock him away. So the only major issue that we have left here is the Titan Hulk itself, right? This physical manifestation in the real world. And this guy is laying waste to everything, right? Like, even Stephen Strange isn't fully sure what to do because the level of power that the Titan Hulk possesses here is astronomical. And if it really is a Hulk powered by the One Below All, then there really isn't anything that can be done here. But as this whole conflict is going on, Monolith is doing her best to hold off the power of the Titan Hulk. But for Monolith's part, one of the revelations that comes out here is that in her fight against Titan Hulk, that where it initially looked like she was beating on him as best she could, she was just kind of doing what Hulks do, which is physically attacking him, blasting him with her staff and magical energy and so on. What she's actually been doing this whole time was siphoning off his power, was siphoning the power away from Titan Hulk, and it diminishes his capabilities. He's not nearly as capable as he was. But this is where the miscalculation of Monolith comes into play. That she quite literally siphons his power off and then blasts him with it in the hopes that it'll destroy him, and it sends him flying. Of course, now when that happens, the other Hulks who were here, who Titan Hulk just absolutely demolished with the greatest of ease, that what happens is they approach her and they basically tell her, like, you've saved us, everything's okay. And her response is, no, I haven't. I haven't saved anything. Like, it was my miscalculation. I absorbed his energy and I blasted him with his own energy, hoping it would destroy him, and it didn't. He's absorbing it all, right? He's back to 100% again, and he even has whatever energy I had residually in my staff. He's more powerful than he was before. And so literally her response is, we're basically doomed. There's no way our world can be saved. And even Stephen Strange himself says that, right? He's like, with this level of power that you're dealing with here, there's no way to save your world. It's going to fall and it's going to be destroyed. And even Despair tells Stephen Strange, that's the goal here, right? The goal of Titan Hulk is to siphon all the gamma radiation off of this world and any other world that exists in this universe, and then destroy the universe and move on to the next one, right? So in a lot of ways, what it looks like Donny Cates is doing is kind of building off of what Al Ewing did, sort of giving us this depiction of the events that took place between the time when the One Below All seized control of the Incredible Hulk and that futuristic story where the One Above All had been traveling throughout the multiverse and just wiping out whole universes over and over and over again. It's not explicitly told to us that's what this is, but it would be a cool place to kind of fit it into. So it's awesome. It's a really, really cool depiction on this thing. But again, one of the things to understand, and just demonstrating the sheer level of power that Titan Hulk has, not even Stephen Strange can stop this guy. Now, you can make transitive property arguments, right? And we can cook the books and power scaling and say, well, you know, maybe he's more powerful than Dormammu or something like that. I don't definitively know. But what I will tell you is a being as capable as Titan Hulk, seemingly imbued with the power of the One Below All, is enough to go against virtually anybody out there, and it doesn't matter who they are. So no wonder Stephen Strange can't beat this guy. And so what ends up happening here is Banner starts talking to the Incredible Hulk in his own mind. Because remember, the physical form of Hulk, Banner, whatever you want to call it, that's Titan Hulk running around. But inside the mind, Banner and Hulk are kind of trapped there. And so what Banner starts doing is talking to the Hulk and saying, you have to do something. We have to manifest. Something has to happen here. Like, if we do nothing, this entire world and all the Hulks on it will be completely eradicated. We'll be stuck here because Stephen Strange will inevitably die, and then this Titan Hulk will literally travel to our homeworld, wipe out everybody there, and we'll be helpless to do anything but just sit there and watch it happen. So if you care about nothing, Hulk, then continue doing nothing. But if the lives of the people here matter, and if the lives of everybody at home matters, then do something. Step up and do something. And it's one of the coolest things, right? Because while that's going on, Titan Hulk is dominating everybody, right? Like, Stephen Strange opens up a portal to try to get the occupants of this Hulk planet to like a different world. Titan Hulk like basically rips a hole through that reality, like tears a hole in reality and then jumps through. I mean, it's crazy. The only time we've ever really seen a being based on physical power do anything like this was during the Tryon Juggernaut story. If you guys remember that, when Tryon Juggernaut was punching holes in reality, it was nuts, right? We covered that, and in fact, we'll remaster it because it's just a ridiculously amazing story. But it was just this OP version of Juggernaut punching holes in the universe. It was nuts. It's not something that we see very often. And so what ends up happening is that because of the pleading of Banner, the Incredible Hulk finally steps up. Now, the irony of this is that when the Hulk does step up, the Titan Hulk persona basically tells him, there's nothing I need from you anymore, right? Like, I've siphoned off everything I need. I've got your physical body. Nothing here matters. But something to understand here is that the entire basis, the entire foundation of the Titan Hulk's existence is predicated on the Hulk itself. If the Hulk isn't there, the Titan Hulk's power basically wanes because there's nothing for that persona to latch onto. There's nothing for it to become a part of, right? Like, it's a really interesting prospect because what this does is it actually leads to both Banner and Hulk working together and then punching a hole through Titan Hulk and then leaving the physical body, right? Like, actually exiting out of the physical body. When that happens, Hulk reverts back into Banner's form, and then in turn, the entire conflict ends, right? You literally switch over to Banner in Strange Academy. Now, here's the thing, and this is something that caught me off guard, right? Because it just suddenly ends, and it's just like, what? Like, it's suddenly over. The reason why the story ends this way is because Donny Cates, the guy who's writing this, is basically taking a mental health break. He's walking away from the Incredible Hulk series, so it just ends suddenly, like without any real thing. The only thing we're given here is some measure of an epilogue where basically Doc Samson writes a letter to Bruce Banner telling him, like, none of us blame you for anything that's happened, none of this is your your fault or anything like that, right? Like, you should come back to Planet Hulk sometime, or Hulk Planet or whatever, and hang out, right? It'd be really cool if we all hung out and did Godball and all that kind of stuff, right? As far as Titan Hulk's concerned, its power is basically non-existent, right? Like, it's just not really there anymore. The force of power that was being used to create it has effectively left, and of course we end up finding out that source of power ends up transitioning back to the person that originally gave it, who's basically the leader, who's imbued with the power of the One Below All from Al Ewing's run, right? The leader, of course, being a former Incredible Hulk villain, but like, it just ends all of a sudden, right? It's just like, and we're done. And that's basically it, because Donny Cates, his entire run was cut short because he was focusing on a mental health break. So a very lackluster ending to what was otherwise a phenomenal Incredible Hulk story. But thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.